think you've heard it all, then along comes the exploding microphone theory. Well, we're going to refute the fake news about Charlie Kirk shooting. This and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. It is what some people, well, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. The Charlie Crimebuster name and all forms and abbreviations are property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent unless or until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains adult subject matter. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Little did I know that the Charlie Kirk shooting would develop an additional news story of its own. And we're going to talk all about that in just a moment. But first, let me thank you for joining the Charlie Crimebuster train today. Sure glad to have you on board. Hey, I'd like to take a moment to encourage you to reach out with a shout out. You can reach me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. You can ask questions. You can make suggestions about other episodes you'd like for us to cover, and of course, you can lodge objections and disagree. It is a safe place for you. Safe place for you. I said safe place. Safe place. You know what I mean, folks. We're just real here on Charlie Crimebuster. By the way, also check out peacemakernetwork.com. That's our sponsor, peacemakernetwork.com. Hey, do me a favor right now before we just jump into things. Just reach right down there, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. That way you will be notified every time an episode is dropped. It helps us get the word out and let you know when we're ready to drop another episode. So take a quick moment to do that. Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, YouTube/Charlie Crimebuster. You will find us there. Once again, thank you for joining the Charlie Crime train today, and let's get right into it. Now, little did I know that the Charlie Kirk shooting would become another story all in of itself. And it really has. It seems that fake news has almost found a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. And some of these theories, well, they're being pushed by some very high influential influencers online. And everybody's talking about it, from Candace Owens to Joe Rogan and even Megyn Kelly. They're all weighing in on the Charlie Kirk shooting. But unfortunately, some, not all, but some are using this investigation, well, I say, in a not so great way. In fact, a lot of them are playing into the fake news conspiracies that are running afoul. And so on today's program, I'm going to point out some of these fake news stories, and I'm going to refute them. And I'm doing this because on Charlie Crimebuster, well, in Charlie Crimebuster, we follow real evidence. We do not make up stories to get clicks. Rather, we make these crime stories and take them on as an investigator. Now, we'll certainly look at all possibilities, but we will use common sense and investigative integrity in including these into our investigation. Oh, it seems it's so easy today just to throw out a far-out theory and receive clicks, and it's happening way often too much. Now, in today's program, I'm going to identify some of those key theories that are actually just nothing more than just about fake news regarding Charlie's shooting. Now, I first became aware of this digital hijacking of the real Charlie Kirk shooting investigation when one of our listeners requested that I tune in to see what Candace Owens was saying about the Charlie Kirk shooting. Now, prior to this, I knew that Candace Owens, well, I knew she was a right-wing influencer, and I did admire a lot of her earlier work. However, when I began to listen to her about this, well, it broadened my investigation into these so-called theories that her and others were spreading online. Now, please understand, Candace M.O., her method of operation, is not so much to proclaim that as fact, but rather to infer. For example, this week I heard a whole new line. Well, she was talking about the assistant of Charlie Kirk, how he decided to take some pictures of behind-the-scenes movement of Charlie and even his wife and children while they were on the beach, while they were on vacation together. And if you will listen to her, you definitely pick up she's asking questions. She's inferring that it was odd that he did that. And that was just a little way to plant the thought in your mind that maybe he did this because he was already aware that Charlie would be assassinated and was somehow in on the plot. That is what she was inferring. Now, she's very deceptive. Deceptive in the way that she does not come out and say that, but she does make sure her audience knows that she's thinking that way, and then she piles it on. And she even infers that the assistant was putting himself into play to take over for Charlie after he was gone. And all of this, well, it plays into the narrative that somehow this was an inside job. But hold on. Candace Owens, always hedges herself by not out and out saying, but only inferring. Now, in the word infer, it means to draw a conclusion based on evidence and reasoning rather from explicit statements. To infer is to figure out something from clues, information. Example, well, you see the dark clouds in the sky, you infer it's going to rain, right? You see someone smiling after getting maybe a good test paper, you infer they got a good grade. Yeah, of course. Now, the formal definition is to deduce or conclude information from evidence or reasoning rather than from clear statements. This is what Candace is doing. And then that gets passed on to others, and others, well, they turn around and take these inferring statements and make it out to write out fake news. Now, it makes a lot more sense to me how she's attacking the organization by inferring these things. It makes a lot of sense to me because, my friend, you must realize, and you may not know this, but basically Candace Owen was fired from her job as communications director of Turning Point USA, the organization that Charlie founded, that he ran. In fact, Candace Owens resigned from her position as communications director for Turning Point USA in May of 2019. Some of the key details. Well, in an Instagram post, she announced she would be officially moving away from her role as communication director for Turning Point USA so she could, quote-unquote, focus on her own work, including her book or podcast. But, as Paul Harvey says, there's the rest of the story, and that is the fact that this resignation followed controversy over comments that she, Candace Owen, made about Adolf Hitler, who said roughly, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great, okay, fine. Well, you can imagine the criticism that got, and even demands from some of the campus chapters for her to step down. You know, you have to think that a lot of her criticism, even of Jews today, going back to her statement on Hitler, this criticism could be tied back to her losing her job at Turning Point and because of her Hitler blunder. Now, she said, although she left the staff role, she would still speak at the conference and continue chairing the annual Black Leadership Summit. Some of the things that she said makes me think also that maybe, just maybe, she thought that she should be the one that should have taken up Charlie's mantle. That she should have been the one that was going out there and doing the rallies. And it could not have made her happy by any means of the way that she wasn't even invited to speak at the memorial service. Now, don't get sorry for Candace Owen losing her position at Turning Point. Oh, she has millions of followers. And she's turned those followers into millions of bucks. So, my friend, we're going to take some time now in the program. We're going to get into the main fake news that's making its mark on the digital stage. Not just from Candace Owens, but from others as well. And we're going to get into that right after this moment. But right now, it's time for us to take just a moment and share with you what we call Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. All right, we have a Florida man. Yes, a Florida man. Another Florida man, Kevin Burris. I guess he missed being in jail. He probably loved being in jail. Because this Florida man, well, he couldn't have masterminded a faster way to get thrown back inside. That's right. On Sunday, Kevin, well, he walked free from the Brevard County Jail Complex here in Florida. And what did he do with all this newfound freedom? Well, here's what he did. Crossed the street to the Brevard County Sheriff's motor pool, picked up a rock from a flower bed, and hurled it at a police patrol car. He even managed to smash the glass in the process. And oh no, not just content with that damage, he grabbed another rock and shattered a patrol SUV. And all of it caught right there on camera. No one had stopped him at that time, yet he was still free, but even then, he just couldn't stand that. Then he saw movement. A deputy had arrived at the jail to drop off another inmate, and as soon as that car was unloaded, you got it, oh Kevin, he threw another rock right in plain sight of the deputy. And you know the rest of this story. The deputy immediately arrested him, brought him right back inside for rebooking. And now he's being held without bail. The good old sheriff down there, another walking tall sheriff in Florida, Sheriff Wayne Ivey said, well, quote unquote, here's a guy who's given his freedom back, and before the ink's even dry on the release paper, he's already committing more crimes against law enforcement, no less. And of course, surprise, 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 he says multiple prior arrests for property-related offenses, public disturbances. And he caused almost $4,000 in damage to the sheriff's fleet. And the sheriff posted the story right on Facebook, and of course you could sense his frustration at the revolving doors of repeat offenders. So this guy, this Florida man who could not wait to get out of jail only to get back in jail, is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week.
The following podcast is brought to you by PeacemakerNetwork.com. PeacemakerNetwork.com. Audio is provided by Pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com.
Now, speaking of crazy, I've already been aware of some fake stories on internet. Actually, there was one that actually tricked me. It had to do with one of my football heroes, old Peyton Manning. Yep, he played for my Tennessee Vols. And you know, he was quite successful as a pro. Yep. I even have a treasured signed football from Peyton from one of the championship games in my office. So when I read on one of the digital platforms that he took time out in the middle of a game to go to a little fella in the stands who had lost his dad, well, I fell for it. I fell for the fake news, hook, line, and sinker. And I did something we warned others about on Charlie Crimebuster, you see. Rather, I did not do something. I did not pause before I posted. And I posted the article. Well, thankfully, quickly, a wise follower of ours pointed out gently to me that these are the kind of stories that abound on the internet as simple clickbait. Now, I always try now to pause before I post and check out these stories to see if they are real or not. But unfortunately, there are thousands who do not pause before they post. And they do become a part of spreading this fake news. So now we're going to get into some of these major stories that are floating around about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. One of them simply says the event was fake. It really didn't happen. No. Charlie was not really shot. They actually argue that Kirk is actually not dead. And that the shooting, well, it was enacted as a stage event for propaganda, political purposes, or maybe a media spectacle. They actually claim that it was a blood bag or a squib. That's what they use in these movies for special effect. and that was used instead of a real gunshot. In this version, another version of it, they say that the ring on Kirk's finger changed position between pre- and post-shooting, and they allege that all of that is just proof of fakery, that all of this really did not happen. Well, if you fact check it, my friend, that's all you have to do. Video and photo analysis, there is no convincing evidence that it was a bag or a squib. That visual bump they talked about was simply the microphone pouch. Please, now do not write this off that no one will believe this, because I read over and over again in response to some of this fake news nonsense. If you look at the replies, there are people, many of them, who actually are believing that Charlie is still alive and hiding out somewhere on planet Earth. Hey, my friend, Elvis is not in the building. And unfortunately, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed and left this life much too soon. Then there's another theory out there that's going around saying that, it's the government or a shadow government was involved. And, you can see a lot of this being inferred from Candace Gossip and others. Candace Gossip is making suggestions that have no verifiable integrity. She's fueling this by her recent statement. She actually said, the government makes you a holiday right after they kill you. That's right. Makes you a holiday after they kill you. Now, what do you infer from that? There's nothing more to infer in the fact that she's inferring that the government had something to do with killing Charlie Kirk. Those are her very words. Linking to this idea of making it a national holiday about Charlie Kirk. And then she says the feds are involved. She says that often. It appears that if for some reason the feds do not answer every question she has on her podcast, then the feds must be covering it up. But anybody knows as an investigator, it's very important to preserve the integrity of the investigation. Investigators do not, or should they not, air their investigation before they've completed the entire investigation. They are to work diligently to investigate and prove their case in court. Not in the court of public opinion, but in a real court where there are jurors and judges, and where evidence is introduced according to integrity and not just thrown on the wall to see if it sticks. Methinks that Candace Gossip, that she thinks rather highly of herself if she thinks that the government is paying attention to the wild theories she's coming up with week by week. This theory broadens the claim of a deep state or hidden elite that had Kirk killed to suppress or to control the conservative movement. Inferring is that everybody's involved. Everybody, President Trump, Patel, Vice President Vance, and others, they're all in on it. But, my friend, even if she may not say it right out, she's certainly inferring to it. But it's all crazy fake news, without an ounce of evidence to prove any of that. Then there is another fake news story. And that is that, there was multiple shooters there, and Tyler Robinson, he was just a patsy, a fall guy, and that the real shooter remains hidden. This type of one comes out of almost all assassinations of important people. And it is bolstered somewhat by the magic bullet. Yeah, we got a magic bullet here, just like, I guess, with Kennedy. That's the theory I talked about last week. If you didn't get that one, be sure and go back and hear that one when we talked about the magic bullet. But, my friend, it is a fact that distance, even fabric and skin tissue, can impact a wound if it's from a certain distance. And these shots differ from one shot to the next. And there are very important factors that are considered in forensic ballistics. Investigators who investigate with integrity are finding no credible evidence that anyone other than the alleged gunman, Tyler Robinson, fired the shot that killed Charlie Kirk. And then there is another theory, and this theory I think is getting a whole lot of attention. And that is that somehow Israel, or the Mossad, had orchestrated Charlie Kirk's killing. It is in fact one of the most wildly circulated theories that Israel, or its intelligence service Mossad, arranged or ordered the assassination because of Kirk's political stance. And there's all kinds of claims. There's even a book listing the shooting of Charlie Kirk that appeared on Amazon before the attack. That's what some people have said, suggesting foreknowledge. But if you fact-check this, authorities are telling us that there is no credible link to Mossad in Israel that has been shown. The theory leans heavily on speculation and timing coincidences. But oh now, there's even a new one. I didn't hear this one from Candace Owen, but I heard this one from another major influencer out there online. And that was the claim, hold on to your hat, that Charlie Kirk wasn't killed by that bullet, but that his lapel microphone exploded or contained a remotely detonated charged squib, and this was what produced the injury. It's similar to, and it's been framed as similar to the exploding pager-style operations that was attributed to Israeli covert action. That theory is being pushed on fringe forums, even video analysis channels and several posts. But my friend, there is no public credible evidence supporting an exploding mic. Law enforcement, multiple news outlets all report ballistic forensic links to a suspect. None of this links to a suspect and has not been confirmed by any mic exploding. In fact, my friend, investigators actually recovered the microphone, the audio transmitter, and Kirk's clothing. None of it showed burn marks, residue, or any metal deformation that would accompany such an explosion of a mic. No trace of explosive material was found at the site or in the remains of Kirk's mic pack. And the FBI's explosive unit made no report of any device or detonator that would cause this or even the components. But again, you see, it all relates back to that Israel connection that some keep trying to pull into the Kirk killing. Now, my friend, you have a right to disagree with the way Israel's handling the war in Gaza. And a number of younger people do disagree with the way the war is handled. However, that does not give anybody the right to blame Israel for the killing of Charlie Kirk. Even if Charlie Kirk was leaning away from some of his support of Israel, he didn't get to the point that he was not supporting Israel, but he did disagree with some of the things that Israel was doing. He had pressure put on him by some donors by not totally backing Israel 100%. In fact, Candace just dropped another episode this past week claiming that there were not one but 12 cell phones on the ground at the campus of Utah that were all purchased from Israel, the state of Israel. But again, this wild claim has no evidence backing it up. And on top of that, there's not any connection to the shooting of Kirk, even if it was that maybe 12 among hundreds there had connection to Israel. So where's Candace and others coming up with this stuff? We have to remember, my friend, that there is a definite foreign disinformation, propaganda, exploitation in America. Both live agents and bots are continually inserting themselves into America's digital superhighway to divide and cause confusion. Russia, China, Iran, all are amplifying these conspiracy narratives to sow discord in the U.S. Even that's backed up by ABC News reports. So, my friend, let me urge you, do not allow yourself to be a part of spreading disinformation. You can read about it, But please don't take it hook, line, and sinker like I took the story about Peyton Manning. Don't find yourself becoming a part of those who get into the rabbit hole and keep digging and digging and digging until they're way out of sight of reality. It is a fact that all verified forensic audio and video evidence confirms that Charlie Kirk was shot by a firearm, not killed by an exploding microphone. The fact is, Robinson confessed in text messages that he was going to take Charlie Kirk out. He was recognized by his own parents as his image being a part of that was placed online and before the media. His father reached out to him and said, "Hey, show me the rifle that you got from your grandfather." He could not do it. Why? Because that rifle was hidden in the bushes after he jumped off the roof, allegedly, after he had shot Charlie Kirk. He even gave a motive why that was to take place. When he said, "Why would you do this?" He said, "I did it because Charlie was spreading hate." His DNA was located on the alleged weapon that was used to shoot Charlie Kirk. There was DNA on the screwdriver left on the roof, where no doubt he broke down his rifle, put it in his backpack, and took off of that roof. He could not show his grandfather's weapon because he left it behind at the site. And now today, investigators are preparing to prove without a reasonable doubt that the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, acted alone and was responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. All of this being investigated while fake news is dropping all around. There are fake news stories that are out there. They look like real articles. They look like just a reporter giving the news. But many of these are fake. And then on top of the fake news, you have those that are inferring, those that are just questioning, those that are just trying to take away from the reality of what really happened that day. And sadly, I believe it is not helping the image of Charlie Kirk. And it's not helping this nation. Do people have a right to say what they're saying? Yes, they have every right to say what they're saying. But with our rights becomes responsibility. And I believe that people who throw things out, just to throw things out, without really following up and doing it with investigative integrity, I do not believe that that is responsible reporting. So here on Charlie Crimebuster, we will always try to investigate these true crimes with what we call investigative integrity, looking at it all. And you might say, well, you just always take law enforcement's side. No, I don't. If you've listened to me at all, and there are hundreds of episodes out there that we have recorded, you know that when a cop does wrong, I'm the very first to jump on that, because one cop doing wrong makes it bad for all of us. And we do not hesitate to point out when law enforcement is incorrect. So let's look at all these crimes with investigative integrity. Well, we're going to wrap it up this week. And I'm amazed that more things come out. Just when I thought I heard it all about Charlie Kirk being, killed, then I saw this past week, I saw a guy get on who had thousands and thousands of followers who again said, well, nope, it was a microphone that exploded. That's the way Charlie Kirk was killed. Just like the pagers that Israel used in their covert actions. That's the way Charlie Kirk was killed. And folks, it's fake. It's fake stuff. It's clickbait. Stay away from those things. Zero in on the truth. And you will be fine. So until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert. Yep, for the life you save may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. We would like to thank our sponsor, the Peacemaker Network, and also encourage you to support the first responders, military, and law enforcement personnel by contributing to the Peacemaker Network. That's peacemakernetwork.com. All music and sound effects are courtesy of Pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com. You can also support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, tag @CharlieCrimebuster, and then click the subscribe button. By doing so, you'll be notified each time we drop one of our shows. Another more convenient way for you to listen to our podcasts, or for you to say to your smart speaker, play Charlie Crimebuster. If you have comments or suggestions, we would love to hear from you, so please send them to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, or you can call or text us at 407-917-2211. That's 407-917-2211. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you will join us again for another exciting crime episode with Charlie Crimebuster.